And welcome back. What you're seeing in Sabrina's hand is a classic example of taxidermy. Two birds, and of course they're perched on a piece of wood, right? And of course our segment this morning is with Dr. Steven Zitzer. He's the co-founder of the Belize Natural History Archives, and he will talk to us about these birds and what the purpose of the Belize Natural Archives is all about. Good morning, Dr. Zitzer.
Good morning, and welcome. Thank you so much for showing us this.
It's a unique display of birds.
Yes.
Yes. Our mission statement with the Belize Natural History Archive, should I be looking at you or the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. Is biodiversity awareness and respect. The reason we're, to some degree, saying we're preaching that is that birds, all biodiversity, provide important ecosystem services to make the planet a safe place to live. You know, they recycle nutrients, plants make oxygen for us, all those things. So every time we lose a species, we have a less healthy planet. I started doing taxidermy when I was a child, or 16 years old back in the US. I've always liked birds, and so I grew up next to museums and libraries. So those are the things that, for me, inspired me to study. And I have a Bachelor of Science degree in soil science from the University of Wisconsin, where I grew up. I have a master's degree in forestry from Clemson University, where I studied symbiotic nitrogen fixation.
Wow.
And I have a PhD in plant physiology from the University of Illinois, where I studied more things about nitrogen fixation and carbon cycling. And from there, that was the University of Illinois, I went to Texas A&M, and I was a professor there. And all this time, while I'm doing my academic career, I enjoyed the taxidermy, so I've done it all my life. And it all started by my experience with museums, and where I grew up. I actually grew up in Ohio before I moved to Wisconsin. That I knew you could do taxidermy because I saw it. So I finally started, when I first got my first car in 1968, I was driving and I saw a roadkill, some birds on the side of the road. So I took them home. I put them in my freezer. I had them there for a couple of years, and then finally my mother told me, if you don't do something with them, I'm going to throw them away. So once again, I went to the library.
Yes.
I got a book and learned how to do the taxidermy, and the supplies are not that complex. There's companies. Taxidermy has been a popular skill. People have always loved birds.
For persons who don't know what it is, though, explain to us what taxidermy is.
Taxidermy is taking live animals and removing the insides and just preserving the skin and some of the bones, and then reconstructing them with fake bodies.
Wow.
So they look alive again. Now with birds, the technique is a lot different with birds than with animals. Mammals, the skin is just biologically way different. There's lots of scraping and chemicals, but birds are so simple. Everybody knows what a chicken's like. It has a nice skin. It's easy to move around. So to skin a bird like this small one, it takes me 2 or 3 hours. Then another 2 or 3 hours to stuff it. So once I have it skinned, during the skinning process, I have some powder, preservative that I put on that keeps bacteria and fungi from eating it later, but it's not toxic to humans.
Yeah.
Traditionally in the past, taxidermists used arsenic-based powders. So fortunately we don't do that anymore. It's just like people who used to make hats use mercury. So and it causes mental problems. So mad as a hatter, that's what that term came from, because they're
the mad hatter.
Exposed to that mercury and arsenic that cause that. So I'm mad on my own side. I don't eat chemicals. So yeah, I started then doing the taxidermy in the late 60s, and I did for a lot of museums. In the US, hunting is very popular, so I could legally skin a lot of birds. Like when I was at Texas A&M, it's a huge hunting state, so I skinned and stuffed lots of ducks, geese, and quail. So
how did you end up in Belize? I gather that you're well traveled, and 12 years ago you decided to migrate to Belize. What brought you here?
My first job at Texas in 1991, I was near Houston, Texas, and I like to travel, and I love biodiversity. I knew about Belize, so in 1991, with my first wife, we came here on vacation, and I fell in love with it. Back in then, it took us 3 hours to get from Belize City to Coxcomb. Oh, the roads were horrible.
Yeah.
So that was 1991. fast forward to 2012. I'm 60 years old. I'm thinking about retiring, and I came down here in March of 2012 looking for a place to retire in. I was out in San Ignacio, out near Colic Creek, and inadvertently, my ex-wife had found a publication that offered this piece of property for sale in Colic Creek.
Yeah.
And I went and saw it, and I fell in love with it immediately. So 35 acres in the bush, off the grid, and so I bought that piece of property in 2012, then came back in 2013 to start to work on it, and that's when I met my current wife on the Cape Hawker boat task, actually. And so then she decided that, I told her I was coming here in September of 2013 permanently, and she decided to come. So September 2013, we packed all our stuff in a 1993 Toyota 4Runner and a small trailer, and we drove down through Mexico.
And the rest is history.
Right, and well, I went back to the States a couple times. My mother died. She was 93 in 2020, I think. But otherwise, I have no reason to leave. It's beautiful here. It's never boring in Belize. So and now between my place in the bush and we have an Airbnb in San Ignacio and the museum, I'm fully occupied.
Talk to us.
Never retired.
Talk to us, Doc, about the Belize Natural History Archives and what it's all about. You mentioned that this is part of your pursuit as someone who's in love with nature.
Right. Back in 2014, my wife and I participated in something called the Audubon Annual Christmas Count, where about 2 weeks around Christmas, people go out all across the planet and count birds. So we attended the Christmas count. There's 4 or 5 in Belize, and usually one in each district. We attended the count in Punta Gorda with Dr. Lee Jones. He's the father of birding in Belize. He wrote The Birds of Belize, the first book in 2000. So at that Christmas count, I also met a woman named Sarah Mann, who was working at Belize Bird Rescue, which is in Roaring Creek, run by Nikki Bruxton. And so we're talking, and it's like, well, we get all these injured birds, we try to heal them and let them go back to the wild, which is incredibly noble, and she does great work. So I said, well, what do you do with the dead ones? Oh, well, we just burn them. I said, well, shoot, you're in education. They're beautiful educational tools for teaching biodiversity awareness. So I started to, so then, birds are all protected in Belize. So then I went to the forestry department to get a permit so I can legally do it, because all these birds, they're all protected species. You can't have them legally. So I got the permit, and then the first few birds I did, Sarah Mann was also doing some outreach, going to schools and whatnot. And then the collection got so big that I needed a place to put it. And we met Lupita Ferguson from the House of Culture in San Ignacio. And so there were still a temporary building. And so through her, we started the first exhibit. So that was in 2016. So then from there, in San Ignacio, they renovated the old hospital into the new House of Culture. So all this time I never run out of dead animals. so all this time I'm creating more displays. And so we opened that display at the House of Culture in 2016. And that was wonderful. It worked well until COVID hit. And then in 2017, St. Herman's Cave, the Blue Hole National Park, opened a new visitor center. So through the Audubon Society, they commissioned me to create an exhibit there. So there's a second exhibit at the St. Herman's Cave Blue Hole. 7 or 8 birds, not a big display. Then the exhibit kept getting bigger and bigger, and Audubon, who sponsored that event at St. Herman's Cave, decided to sponsor an event at the Museum in Belize City. That was 2019 for the 50th anniversary of Audubon in Belize. So Audubon sponsored that. They created space on the 2nd floor of the museum, and that opened in 2019. And it was open until COVID. They had some problems with the building, and then it reopened again in 2022. Still, I'm doing birds. I'm trying to do as many as I can. So Miss Delana, my wife, had some funding, so we decided it's time to open our own venue, which it's been 2 years building the building, and she's invested plenty of her own private funds, and so now we're happy to have it open.
And where can we find it?
We have a website that's not finished yet, but if you just Google Belize Natural History Archive, there's a Facebook site. We open on Sunday. There's a raffle you can join online. It's going to be $10 for adults. Children under 16 are free, but you have to have an adult with you. But one adult, only 10 kids. Joking. But anyway, and then we're going to be open on Sunday as our opening day from 11 to 5. Then from then on, 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday from 12 to 6. We'll see how things go. And by appointment, groups of people can come. When I had the exhibits at the House of Culture in San Ignacio, I had thousands of school kids that came to see the exhibits. So that's an important part, as well as the Museum of Belize. So
I'm fascinated by the raptors that you guys have that you've put on display. Talk to us about that.
Well, as I said, I get all these birds pre-killed. Actually, I have a permit, so I can pick up roadkills as well. So I pick up a lot of things. But birds of prey, they're big. And most of them get hit by cars. Some are shot. Other reasons they died as well. But they're laying on the side of the road. People see them more readily than these small birds when we had there. So they see them, they're alive. They pick them up and they take them to Belize Bird Refuge. So that's why in my exhibit I have lots of birds of prey. And also, in the past, now the new archive, I have giant freezer space. In the past, I had small freezers, so whenever I got something big, I had to do that first because I didn't have space for it. So, and I did actually a lot of this work for 5 years out in the bush.
Wow. I also saw the keelbill toucan there as well.
No, they are a very abundant bird. They're common in our neighborhood in San Ignacio even, and since they're fairly abundant, they do get hit by cars very often. So I probably have skinned at least 5 or 6 of them. And the smaller ones, the RSRs. But oddly, some of the other more common birds like green jays and mockingbirds and some of the doves and grackles and things, they're really acclimated to urban areas, so they avoid getting hit by cars.
How long does it take to do something like that? We showcased some smaller birds just moments ago. Describe what the time frame would look like for each of these birds.
The biggest issue when I get them, they're already frozen and they've been damaged somehow, hit by cars, whatever. So when I first thaw them, I have to dry them and clean the blood off them. They're actually pretty tough, so that if it's really bloody and messy but fresh, once a small bird like this with this kind of heat and humidity, if it's not frozen within 2 hours, it starts to decompose. So the skin starts to fall apart, and then I can't really work with it. But if it's fresh, I clean it, and then I have to dry it. I spend more time with a hairdryer than you can imagine. So first, clean it, dry it, and then birds, unlike mammals, how we have hair all over our bodies, the feathers just grow in tracks down the side of each. So, like when you see a chicken, you just part the feathers, and then there's a big bare space, and I take a scalpel, and I just make one thin cut from the breastbone to the anus, and then I just start peeling it back and slowly peel it back with my scalpel. And I have this powder I sprinkle on it, and then eventually, so I peel it all open, I skin around the legs, I turn the whole thing inside over the head. I have to leave the skull in there, so it's all turns inside out. I cut the neck off there, turn it back inside out. Then once I have that done, then the messiest part is taking the eyeballs and the brain out. If you're squeamish. And then I put glass eyes in it. I make a body. The body that I take out, I never cut it into the body cavity, so it's not bloody or messy. I shape a body out of newspaper, styrofoam, and then each leg, I run a wire through each leg. I don't know if you can see me.
That's what I wanted to know.
One through the body.
How they're able to sit firmly up.
Right, there's wire, newspaper, and I sew them back together. So after I've got it, so I skin it, I stuff it. Those are 3 steps. I can skin it, freeze it again, take it out, stuff it, freeze it again, take it out and pose it. So I like to do it all in one day. But so yeah, then once it's skinned and stuffed like that, then it's like a little Gumby figure. So I can bend it in any way I want and make it look as pretty as I want. And I'm always looking for beautiful pieces of wood too, so I have to have some idea. And then once I'm ready to pose it, there's something called Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology and eBird and Birds of the World. So there's lots of sites where I can look then at pictures, so I can see. I mean, I'm a bird watcher, so all the stuff I did in the past was just by memory. But no, we're going to look at eBird and, you know, is that what they really look like when they're alive? And so, so I use the internet and resources to make sure I create realistic kind of things. Now, then a lot of times when you look at some of the exhibits, I have a lot of victims in birds of prey's claws, because if a bird is really messed up and I can't make it look alive, it's easy to make it look dead.
That's true.
So I have a lot like that as well. So,
Wow.
So a little bird like this, all together, probably 8 to 10 hours.
Wow.
Jabiru probably took me a week.
Wow.
Wow.
And then that was the other thing that one of the reasons we opened the Natural History Archive was when COVID hit and I had the big exhibit at the House of Culture in San Ignacio, I put it in storage for 4 years. Actually, the exhibit went up and down a couple times. First of all, the studio I had the exhibit in, they decided to use it for quarantining people with COVID because it was next to the bathrooms. So they took the exhibit down, and then all the people were escaping, so they decided not to use it for quarantine. So I put the exhibit back up. Then, when the vaccines came out, the hospital decided to take over the pediatric ward for vaccination. So they sent the pediatric ward to the House of Culture and took the exhibit down again. So then it sat in storage at my wife's house on 2nd Street in the dust and the humidity for 4 years. So it was, I probably spent a month just cleaning up, getting the birds ready again. So I'm happy now. I could start doing new animals. So I'm really excited about doing new stuff.
So are you interested in doing this with other forms of animals as well, as you mentioned?
Right now, I have a bone collection. When I have mammals, I take them out to the bush and I bury them and the insects clean them up. So I have some bone collections. We're also going to be working with Green Hills Butterfly Ranch. So we have butterflies, insects, and bones. And and then I'm also going to be offering teaching. I'm 72. I hope to be doing this for another 15 years anyway. But yeah, I'm going to start teaching some local people how to do it. And we have a nice, we're also developing a natural history library. So it'll be a very nice resource center. And it's on a very nice lot. Like I said, I'm a plant person. I work with orchids. So outside the building will be all native plants. And ironically, we're right next to the cemetery, so we have dead people on one side and dead animals.
Yeah, quite the sense of humor, Doc. But
it's a beautiful venue. It's really nice access, public access. So we look forward to opening to the public.
Well, this has been quite an interesting conversation. I love the experience and the knowledge that you're able to bring, Doctor, and contribute it to our wildlife that we have here in Belize. Right. I think it's an amazing way to capture history, and God forbids any of our wildlife or our birds become extinct. We can show generations after what exactly that looked like. So thank you so much for the contributions that you've made so far. As it relates to the Belize Natural History Archive, please remind our viewers how they can reach out to you guys, access information, or contribute and partner with you in any other projects.
We are going to have a membership available, and we have a program to adopt a bird. You get a plaque that you help fund preservation of that species. The website's not up yet, but you can go on Facebook and everything's available there. We have a phone number that you can call. So, yeah. All
right. Well, thank you so much. And do you have any final words that you'd like to share with our viewers as it relates to the work that you do?
I'm happy to contribute to Belize. I love it here. I'm doing the best I can to give more than I take, always.
Yes, all right.
And I look forward to spending more time in the bush, too, again. 5 years in the bush was beautiful, so.
Yes. All right, well, thanks so much for stopping by. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about a community and support the community and purchase a Rotary truck ticket with the folks from the Rotary. Stay with us. We'll be right back.